Dr. Keva squinted at the desolate landscape of Ganymede from the viewing portal of the battered shuttle. Charming, she muttered, voice dripping with sarcasm. The moon's surface, a frozen wasteland peppered with alien ruins, lay sprawled out below like the universe's most dysfunctional jigsaw puzzle. "It's like a postcard from hell," said Lieutenant Bex Riggs, her ever-optimistic second-in-command, leaning over Keva's shoulder. "Wish you were here, really." Keva rolled her eyes, adjusting her glasses. Standard issue from the interstellar penny-pinching department. Corporate's idea of a working getaway. Instead of sun, sand, and cocktails, we get ice, rock, and the faint promise of death. "You forgot alien mysteries," chimed in Dr. Elan Torres, the team's chemist, with a grin that suggested he'd actually read the mission briefing. "And they say romance is dead." "Just my will to live," Keva shot back. The shuttle landed with all the grace of a drunken elephant, shuddering to a halt. The team disembarked, stepping into the biting chill of Ganymede's air. Keva pulled her coat tighter, cursing the cold with every fiber of her being. "Welcome to the edge of oblivion," Bex announced, arms spread wide. "Next stop, discovering something that doesn't want to be discovered." "That's the spirit," Keva replied, not even attempting to mask the sarcasm. "Let's try not to die before lunch, yeah." The alien ruins loomed ahead, crumbling structures etched with cryptic symbols and the faint promise of past grandeur. The scientists had been sent here to unearth secrets that might turn the tide of the Galactic War. Humanity, as usual, was on the back foot, fighting for survival with all the elegance of a bar brawl. "Depressing, isn't it?" Elan mused, running his hand over the cold stone. "Imagine building all this, only to have people like us pawing through your stuff centuries later." "They say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery," Bex said. "Or maybe it's just theft," Keva added. "Let's grab whatever secrets we can, and hope the universe doesn't notice." As they ventured deeper into the ruins, the air grew colder, the weight of history pressing down on them like a particularly oppressive paperweight. The thought of what lay ahead, a labyrinthine complex that defied logic and probably health and safety regulations, was both thrilling and terrifying. "You know, sometimes I think the universe has a sick sense of humor," Keva mused aloud. "Oh, it definitely does," Elan replied. "Why else would it invent Mondays?" Their banter was interrupted by a sudden, unsettling noise, a low hum resonating through the ruins. Keva's hand instinctively went to the sidearm strapped to her hip, a relic from her past life in the military. "Just what we need," Bex said, eyes scanning the shadowy corridors. Creepy sound effects. "Someone call the exterminators." Suddenly, a figure emerged from the shadows, moving with an unsettling grace. Not human, but not entirely alien either. Tall and slender, with skin like woven starlight and eyes that shone with an unsettling intelligence. "Ah, the welcoming committee," Keva muttered under her breath. The figure stopped a few paces from them, raising a hand in what seemed to be a gesture of greeting or a warning. "Humans," it said, voice smooth as polished glass. "I am Taru, scholar of the Ikran. You sicken me less than most of your species." "Charmed," Keva replied, the sarcasm almost palpable. "We're here to dig through your ancestors' knickknacks. Hope you don't mind." Taru's lips curved into something resembling a smile. "Your humor is unexpected and largely unwelcome. We aim to please," Elan quipped, "or at least not to offend too much. Your presence here is inconvenient," Taru continued, "but not altogether unexpected. Your kind has a way of stumbling into places you shouldn't be, and your kind has a way of building intriguing death traps," Keva shot back. "We're here to find something that might help us win a war." "Any chance you'll point us in the right direction and save us some time?" Taru considered them for a moment, a flicker of something unreadable in those luminous eyes. "Perhaps. Our survival hinges on the secrets buried here as well. Cooperation might be mutually beneficial." "Well, cooperation sounds less suicidal than usual," Bex said. "I'm in, as long as we don't end up as alien gourmet," Elan added with a grin. "You humans and your culinary paranoia," Taru remarked dryly. Follow me and try to keep up. The labyrinth does not suffer fools. Keva exchanged a glance with her team, a silent agreement passing between them. Trust was a fragile commodity, but desperation had a way of making strange bedfellows. The group followed Taru into the deeper shadows of the ruins, the walls closing in around them like the jaws of some ancient beast. Keva could feel the weight of history pressing down, and for a moment, she wondered what those long-dead architects would think of their uninvited guests. Probably laughing their asses off, she muttered to herself, stepping into the darkness with a resolve that felt as brittle as the ice underfoot. The path wound its way through the ruins like a drunken serpent, each twist and turn more disorienting than the last. The walls were a patchwork of alien scripts and etched diagrams that seemed to shift in the dim light. "I feel like I'm stuck in a bad acid trip," Elan said, eyes darting to the walls as if they might spring to life. "You say that like you've been in a good one," Bex retorted. "Just keep your eyes on the road, not the weird wallpaper." Taru led them with an unsettling ease, navigating the maze as if drawn by some unseen compass. Keva couldn't help but admire the alien's composure, though she'd rather swallow her communicator than admit it. "Any chance this place has a gift shop?" Keva asked, breaking the silence that had settled like a shroud. "It did," Taru replied without missing a beat. "But the souvenirs were strangely lethal figures," Keva said, stepping over a loose stone. "Everything about this place feels like it's out to get us." "In a way it is," Taru said. "The builders were not fond of trespassers." "Great," Elan muttered. "Alien ruins with a death wish. Just what we need." The conversation was interrupted by a sudden rumbling beneath their feet, the ground trembling as if the ruins themselves were waking from a long slumber. "Now what?" Bex shouted over the noise, her hand instinctively reaching for her weapon. "It appears we've triggered something," Taru said, remarkably calm despite the impending collapse. "I suggest we run." The group took off without hesitation, boots pounding against the icy ground as the walls began to close in. Keva pushed herself faster, adrenaline surging through her veins as the labyrinth shifted around them, the corridors rearranging like a demented jigsaw. "If we die here, I'm haunting the hell out of you," Keva, Bex called. "Get in line," Keva replied, dodging a falling rock. "I've got dibs on the afterlife complaints department." They burst into a larger chamber, the ground leveling out beneath them as the rumbling subsided. Keva skidded to a halt, breathless and heart-pounding, grateful to still be in one piece. "Well," Elan panted, leaning against a wall for support. "That was invigorating. Like a workout from hell," Bex agreed, trying to catch her breath. Taru, unruffled as ever, surveyed the chamber with an inscrutable expression. "We are close. The heart of the labyrinth lies just beyond." "And what exactly is in this heart?" Keva asked, already dreading the answer. "Power," Taru replied. "Enough to save a species or doom one." "A hell of a choice," Keva said, trying to suppress the gnawing sense of dread. "Let's hope we choose right." With that, they set off once more, the promise of salvation, or ruin, pulling them deeper into the labyrinth. Keva felt the weight of the mission like a lead weight around her neck, every step echoing with the ghosts of those who had come before. "And here I thought academia was boring," she quipped, her voice wavering only slightly. "Careful what you wish for, boss," Beck said with a grin. "You might just get it." As they approached the heart of the labyrinth, the air seemed to hum with a strange energy, a pulse that resonated deep within the ruins. Keva knew they were close, but whether they were about to unlock salvation or catastrophe remained to be seen. "Here we go," she muttered under her breath, stepping into the unknown with her team by her side. "Let's not screw this up, shall we?" But as the chamber loomed ahead and the true nature of their prize revealed itself, Keva couldn't shake the feeling that they were dancing on the edge of oblivion, and the music had only just begun. "Damn it," she thought, as the shadows closed in, "I really hate dancing." And with that, the chamber swallowed them whole, leaving only questions in its wake, and the promise of answers that might not be worth the price. As Keva and her motley crew stumbled into the chamber, their eyes locked onto the centerpiece, a cryptic artifact that seemed to pulse with an ethereal glow. It hovered above a dais like some cosmic disco ball, casting shifting shadows that danced across the walls. "Well, ain't that a sight for sore eyes?" Keva muttered, rubbing her temples. "Looks like something a cult would worship. Or something that'd eat us for breakfast," Bex added, shifting uneasily. "If this thing doesn't help us win the war, maybe we could sell tickets." Taru regarded the artifact with something akin to reverence, which on him looked suspiciously like constipation. "This is a relic of the Ikran," he said, voice thick with smug superiority. "Its knowledge could reshape the galaxy." "Reshape it into what? A pretzel?" Elan quipped, nudging the artifact with a cautious toe. Keva shot him a warning glance. "Careful, Elan. Last thing we need is to wake up something that thinks we're a light snack." "So, Taru," she continued, turning her attention back to the alien, "you seem to know your way around this antique. What's it do? Brew your morning coffee, predict lottery numbers." Taru's eyes narrowed, a flicker of annoyance breaking through his stoic facade. "It is a conduit of knowledge, a repository of the wisdom of the ancients. It could grant you insights far beyond your primitive understanding." "Sounds like a fancy way of saying it's a book," Bex said, crossing her arms. "A book with a really bad attitude." "More like a library," Taru corrected, with the air of someone explaining quantum physics to a particularly dense raccoon. "But its secrets are not easily unlocked." "Figures," Keva sighed. "Nothing in this universe comes without strings." "Or a noose." As the group encircled the artifact, each step seemed to hum underfoot, as if the very ground was whispering secrets. Keva couldn't shake the sensation that they were intruding on something sacred, or maybe just something particularly grumpy. "This is where the fun begins," Elan said, cracking his knuckles. "Let's see if we can crack this thing open without unleashing a plague of space locusts. Why do I get the feeling that if there's a wrong button to press, you'd find it?" Keva replied, fixing him with a stare that could melt steel, or at least mildly inconvenience it. Taru, meanwhile, was in full lecture mode. "The artifact requires a precise sequence of activations. One mistake and its defenses will engage." "Defenses?" Bex's eyebrows shot up. "What, like laser turrets, rabid guard dogs?" "Worse," Taru replied. "It will project illusions of your greatest fears." "Fantastic," Keva groaned. "I've always wanted to relive that time I was stuck in a room full of aggressive accountants." Ignoring her, Taru approached the artifact, fingertips brushing its surface with the delicacy of a bomb defusal expert. The relic responded, rippling with a light that seemed to swallow the air around it. "Step back," Taru instructed. "This will require concentration." "Concentration or just a lot of luck?" Elan asked, leaning against a pillar that looked like it had seen better millennia. As Taru worked, Keva couldn't help but notice the tension in the air, a cocktail of mistrust, desperation, and the faintest hint of curiosity. It was like watching a high-stakes poker game, except no one knew the rules and the chips were probably rigged to explode. "So, Taru," she said, trying to fill the silence with something other than existential dread, "what's your stake in all this? Why help us?" The alien hesitated, eyes flicking to meet hers. "My people, the Ikran, are scattered. This artifact holds the keys to our survival just as it may hold the keys to yours." "Mutually assured salvation, huh?" Bex remarked. "Not quite as catchy as mutually assured destruction, but I'll take it." "I'm just hoping it doesn't turn into mutually assured disappointment," Elan chimed in. "I've had enough of that from my dating life." As Taru completed a series of intricate gestures, the artifact responded with an ominous hum, casting a web of light that etched patterns across the chamber floor. It was mesmerizing in the way a slowly descending anvil might be, beautiful but with a strong sense of impending doom. "I think it's working," Taru said, a glimmer of excitement breaking through his practiced calm. "Define working," Keva shot back. "Not spontaneously combusting." The moment hung in the air, pregnant with possibility and the faint smell of burnt electronics. Then with a final pulse the relic stabilized, its glow settling into something less menacing. "Congratulations, Taru," Elan said, clapping slowly. "You managed to not blow us all to Kingdom Come." But Taru wasn't listening. His attention was locked on the artifact, eyes alight with an intensity that bordered on obsessive. "The knowledge is here," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. "We must decipher it." "Decipher it, huh?" Keva crossed her arms, skepticism dancing in her eyes. "And how long will that take? Until the next ice age?" For the first time, Taru's composure cracked, a hint of frustration creeping into his voice. "It is a complex process, but time is not on our side. We must act quickly if we are to benefit." "Funny how that works," Beck said with a grin. "Always in a rush when the universe is ending." Keva surveyed the alien, weighing his words with the care of someone accustomed to being lied to, often and with great enthusiasm. "All right, Taru," she said finally. "We'll help figure this thing out, but don't expect us to play nice if you try anything shady." "You have my word," Taru said, though the sincerity in his voice was about as convincing as a politician's promise. "Right, because that's reassuring," Elan muttered. "I trust him about as far as I can throw him, and not for lack of trying." The group set to work deciphering the artifact, a task that involved more guesswork and swearing than any scientific endeavor should reasonably require. Keva could feel the tension simmering beneath the surface, a tangible presence lurking in the corners of her mind. "So what do we think this thing does besides look pretty?" Bex asked, studying a particularly intricate symbol that seemed to twist and turn in on itself. "Best guess," Keva replied. "It's a repository of advanced technology. Maybe weapons, maybe something else entirely." "Something to win the war with, then," Elan said, trying to sound hopeful but failing spectacularly. "Or at least put up a decent fight." "A long shot," Taru agreed, "but a shot nonetheless." "Well, here's hoping the shot doesn't go right through our foot," Keva deadpanned. As the Iors dragged on, the chamber seemed to close in around them, the weight of their task pressing down like a sledgehammer to the skull. Keva found herself drawn into the ancient glyphs, each symbol a tantalizing hint of knowledge just out of reach. "This is like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube blindfolded," Elan grumbled, frustration etched across his face. "More like trying to solve it with your hands tied behind your back," Keva corrected, "and someone setting your hair on fire." Taru, for his part, worked with a determination that bordered on zealotry. His fingers traced the glyphs with a precision born of desperation, eyes never straying from the task at hand. "You humans are surprisingly adept at this," he admitted, the words laced with reluctant admiration. "And you're surprisingly not," Beck shot back, a teasing glint in her eyes. "Guess we all have our talents." The banter, though light-hearted, couldn't mask the undercurrent of tension, a tension that only grew as they delved deeper into the artifact's secrets. "We're running out of time," Keva said, glancing at the dwindling energy levels on her wrist display. "If we don't figure this out soon, we're toast, and not the good kind." "Yes, because there's a good kind of toast," Elan said, rolling his eyes. "Everyone loves ash-flavored breakfast." Taru paused, lifting his gaze to meet Keva's. "We will succeed," he insisted, though whether it was a promise or a plea was anyone's guess. "And if we don't?" Bex asked, her voice uncharacteristically serious. "Then we've got front-row seats to the end of the world," Keva replied, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. "And I didn't even bring popcorn." As they continued their frantic attempts to unlock the artifact's secrets, the weight of their task loomed ever larger. Each passing moment was a reminder of the stakes, a reminder that failure was not just an option but a distinct possibility. "Let's get this done," Keva urged, determination stealing her voice. "No one else is going to save us if we screw up. Just another day at the office, right?" Elan quipped, though his smile was strained. "Right," Keva said, forcing a laugh. "Only this time the coffee machine's plotting against us too." With that, they threw themselves into their work, a ragtag assembly of hope, desperation, and more than a little gallows humor. As the chamber echoed with their efforts, Keva felt a flicker of something she hadn't dared hope for, a sense that maybe, just maybe, they might pull this off. "All right, let's do this," she muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. "Let's save the damn universe." And as the artifact glowed with renewed intensity, they pressed on, defying the odds, the universe, and their own staggering ineptitude. After all, if they were to fail, at least they'd do it with style. The chamber was a maze of shadows and whispers, playing tricks on the mind. It might have been beautiful if it wasn't so utterly terrifying. Doctor, Kevaliris surveyed the scene like a bemused cat watching a particularly incompetent mouse. "All right, team," she said, her voice cutting through the gloom like a slightly sarcastic knife. "Let's see if we can get through this labyrinth without losing any limbs, shall we?" Lieutenant Bex Riggs, ever the optimist, grinned as she tightened her pack straps. "What, you mean no one's volunteering to lose a leg? I thought we were all about sacrifices here. Speak for yourself, Doctor." Elan Taurus chimed in, fiddling with a gadget that looked suspiciously like it could explode at any moment. "I've grown rather fond of my legs, both of them." Taru, their smug alien guide, was already several steps ahead, inspecting the intricate wall carvings with the air of someone who didn't quite trust the furniture not to grow teeth. "These puzzles were designed to test the mettle of any who dared enter," he said, as if imparting some ancient wisdom. "Great," Keva muttered, "because that's what we need. A cosmic IQ test with death as the penalty for failure." The path ahead branched into a series of corridors, each one looking more ominous than the last. A low hum vibrated through the walls, a constant reminder that the labyrinth was very much alive, and possibly in a bad mood. Elan, ever the scientific mind, pulled out a scanner which promptly started to sputter and die. "Well, that's reassuring," he said, tossing it aside with a resigned shrug. "I guess we'll do this the old-fashioned way." "You know, blindly. Or we could just ask Taru," Bex suggested, her expression daring the alien to prove useful for once. Taru hesitated, clearly weighing the benefits of cooperation against the joys of smug superiority. "The pathways require a balance of logic and intuition," he said finally. "The Ikran believed in the unity of mind and spirit." "Mind and spirit, huh?" Keva arched an eyebrow. "And here I thought we just needed a good pair of sneakers and a complete disregard for personal safety." With little else to go on, the team plunged into the labyrinth, moving with the caution of people who had been repeatedly warned about the risks but decided to ignore them anyway. The air was thick with tension, each step echoing loudly enough to remind them exactly how alone, and possibly doomed, they really were. "So how many traps are we talking about here?" Bex asked, glancing around as if expecting a giant boulder to roll down at any moment. "Several," Taru replied, his tone suggesting he might actually be enjoying their predicament. Elan snorted. "Several, that's comforting, like saying a planet's got several signs of life. Doesn't tell you if it's puppies or carnivorous plants." As they moved deeper into the labyrinth, the walls began to shift, grinding with a sound like an ancient creature stirring in its sleep. Symbols flickered to life, casting eerie shadows that danced across the stone like ghosts at a particularly creepy disco. "Anyone else getting the feeling we're being watched?" Keva asked, peering into the gloom. "Watched, hunted, possibly judged," Elan agreed. "It's like the universe's worst talent show and we're the unwitting contestants." Beck stopped short, staring at a section of wall that seemed to ripple like water. Guys, I think this is one of those intuition parts Taru mentioned." The wall shimmered, the symbols rearranging themselves into a pattern that defied logic. Taru stepped forward, his fingers tracing the air as if conducting an invisible orchestra. "It's a test of perception," he explained. "The Ikran value the ability to see beyond the surface." Keva snorted. "Great. And here I was hoping it was a test of how fast you can run away from danger." Elan studied the shifting symbols, a frown creasing his brow. "Looks like a psychological Rorschach test. Either it's a butterfly or my mother's disappointment." With a shared look that spoke volumes about their collective skepticism, the team set about deciphering the puzzle, their efforts punctuated by muttered curses and the occasional snarky comment. Bex, surprisingly, was the first to make a breakthrough, her eyes lighting up as she rearranged a section of symbols. "Hey, she began, only to have the floor drop out from under her. "Bex!" Keva shouted, lunging forward with reflexes honed by years of avoiding catastrophic blunders. To everyone's relief, Bex's fall was short-lived, ending in an undignified heap on a lower level, cushioned by what appeared to be an unfortunate pile of dust-covered cushions. "I'm okay," she called up, waving a hand. "Just my pride that's bruised." Keva shook her head, torn between relief and exasperation. "Next time, how about we try solving the puzzles without testing gravity?" "Can't promise anything," Bex shot back, brushing herself off with a grin. "Besides, I think I found the shortcut." Joining her on the lower level, the team discovered what appeared to be a previously hidden passageway, its entrance marked by glowing symbols that pulsated with a rhythm disturbingly akin to a heartbeat. "Well, that's not ominous," Elan said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Are we walking into the heart of the labyrinth or the stomach?" Despite the unease curling in her gut, Keva led the way, her mind racing through potential outcomes, each more disastrous than the last. "If it's the stomach," she muttered, "let's hope it's not hungry." The passageway twisted and turned, each step feeling like a journey deeper into the bowels of some ancient beast. The air grew thicker, charged with an energy that crackled against their skin like tiny electric shocks. "Anyone else feel that?" Bex asked, rubbing her arms as if warding off a chill. "Yeah," Keva replied, the words tight in her throat. "Feels like we're walking through a lightning storm." Or a particularly bad first date. Taru, uncharacteristically silent, seemed absorbed in his own thoughts, his eyes flicking across the walls as if searching for something just out of reach. "Care to share with the class?" Keva prompted, not bothering to hide her impatience. The alien blinked, refocusing on the here and now. "There's an energy here," he said, choosing his words with care. "Something ancient. It reacts to our presence." "Great," Elan muttered. "The labyrinth's got a personality, and I bet it's a real charmer." As if to confirm his suspicion, the passageway widened into a chamber dominated by another artifact, its surface pulsating with a light that seemed to pulse in sync with the rhythm of their hearts. "Anyone else getting déjà vu?" Bex asked, eyeing the relic with a healthy dose of skepticism. "Looks familiar," Keva agreed. "Let's hope this one doesn't come with a side of existential dread." Taru approached the artifact with a reverence that bordered on religious awe. "This is a node," he explained, his voice filled with an emotion Keva couldn't quite place. "A focal point of the labyrinth's energy." "Energy, huh?" Elan echoed, crossing his arms. "And what happens if we poke it with a stick?" Taru shot him a look that suggested he was seriously considering whether humans had any redeeming qualities. "It could unlock additional pathways, or it could trigger defenses." "Guess we'll find out," Bex said, stepping forward with the kind of reckless abandon usually reserved for people with nothing left to lose. "Hold on," Keva said, stopping her with a hand on her shoulder. "Let's not rush into things. Maybe we should." Her words were cut off by a low rumble, the chamber vibrating as if it had received an unwelcome wake-up call. The walls shimmered, rippling like the surface of a disturbed pond. "Looks like the labyrinth's rolling out the red carpet," Elan said, his voice light but his eyes wary. Taru's fingers danced over the artifact, his movements precise and deliberate. "We must proceed with caution," he warned, though his voice lacked its usual superiority. "Right," Keva agreed, her eyes locked on the relic, "because caution's always been our strong suit." As Taru worked, the chamber seemed to hold its breath, the air thick with anticipation. Keva could feel the weight of the moment, the knowledge that whatever happened next could very well determine their fate. "Hey, no pressure," Bex said, shooting Keva a grin. "We've only got the fate of the universe riding on this." "Yeah," Keva replied, forcing a smile. "Just another day at the office." With a final, decisive movement, Taru activated the node, the chamber awash in blinding light. It was as if the universe had taken a deep breath and was waiting to see how things played out. "So what's next?" Elan asked, squinting against the glare. Survive, Keva answered, her voice firm. And maybe save the universe while we're at it. The light dimmed, revealing a new pathway that stretched out before them, its destination hidden in shadow. Keva took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever lay ahead. "Let's move," she said, leading the way with a determination born of desperation and defiance. As they stepped into the unknown, the chamber behind them faded into silence, a reminder of the battles yet to come. But for now, they pressed on, driven by hope, fear, and the stubborn belief that they might just pull this off. "Hey, at least it's never boring," Bex quipped, her voice echoing in the labyrinth's depths. "Yeah," Keva replied, a hint of laughter in her tone. Boredom was never the problem. With that, they continued onward, a ragtag band of heroes or fools, determined to defy the odds, the galaxy, and their own staggering ineptitude. After all, if they were going to fail, they might as well do it in style. The chamber seemed to exhale a sigh of relief as the team stepped into the new passage. Keva led the charge, her usual skepticism dialed up to 11. She could feel the weight of the artifact in her jacket pocket, a constant reminder of the power they'd just unleashed. Well, that was a light show to remember. Anyone else afraid they're going to start glowing in the dark? Bex quipped, eyes still adjusting to the dimness of the new path. Glowing in the dark would be useful, Elan pointed out, fiddling with his scanner. At least we'd save on flashlight batteries. Yeah, just what I need, Keva grumbled. A personal rave party at the worst possible moment. Taru, walking with a calculated calm, seemed unfazed by the banter. "The node you activated is a gateway," he explained, his voice carrying a note of solemn importance. "It links to a weapon of unimaginable power." "Unimaginable power, you say?" Bex raised an eyebrow. "Sounds like a delightful responsibility. What kind of weapon are we talking about here?" Keva asked, her tone demanding answers and a decent explanation. Taru hesitated, clearly weighing his next words. "The Ikran called it the Judicator. It was designed as a last resort, a tool for peace through ultimate force." "Peace through force," Elan chuckled dryly. "That's like saying you'll stop a fire by throwing gasoline at it." "Sounds like the sort of peace that leaves everyone dead," Bex added, shaking her head. "The galaxy is already teetering on the edge of oblivion," Taru said, his gaze sweeping the corridor. "Both our species face annihilation. The Judicator is our only hope," Keva snorted. "Hope's a funny thing. Especially when it comes with a self-destruct lever." The walls around them seemed to pulse, as if listening in on their conversation. The labyrinth, with its twists and turns, now felt like a living entity judging their every move and decision. "So, let's recap," Bex interjected, ticking off points on her fingers. "We've uncovered the ultimate weapon, both our species are about to be toast, and our only moral choice is between a rock and a hard place. Did I miss anything?" "Just one thing," Keva replied, her expression darkening. "We're out of snacks." "Well, that settles it," Elan sighed. "I knew we were doomed." As they pressed on, the air grew thicker, carrying the faint scent of ozone and despair. Keva could feel anxiety clawing at her throat, a sensation she'd learned to live with but never fully embraced. "So what's the plan?" she asked, glancing at Taru. "You're the one with the mysterious alien knowledge." "To use the Judicator," Taru began, "we must complete the activation sequence. The path ahead will test us individually, and as a group." "Tests," Bex groaned. "I knew there was a reason I hated school." "Let's hope these tests don't involve pop quizzes," Elan added, his eyes scanning for threats. The corridor suddenly opened into another chamber, its center occupied by a hulking mass of machinery. It buzzed with latent energy, a sleeping beast ready to be roused. Keva couldn't help but feel a mix of awe and dread at the sight. "Looks like we found the heart of the operation," she muttered, fear fighting with curiosity. "You mean the stomach, right?" Bex corrected with a grin. "Given we're likely about to be consumed by this thing." Elan stepped forward, eyes gleaming with the kind of excitement only a scientist could muster in the face of potential doom. "This must be the control mechanism," he said, peering at the intricate controls. "It's beautiful, beautiful like a black hole," Bex shrugged, all-consuming and likely to ruin your day. Taru joined Elan, his fingers brushing over symbols that flared briefly at his touch. "We must be careful," he warned. "One wrong move and boom," Keva finished for him, her voice tinged with sarcasm. "Something like that," Taru acknowledged, not bothering to hide his concern. With a sigh, Keva moved closer, her mind racing through every worst-case scenario she could imagine. "So, who's gonna be the brave idiot to pull the trigger if it comes to that?" Elan glanced at her, his gaze earnest. "Brave or just stupid? Is there a difference?" Bex chimed in, flashing a wry smile. Taru's attention remained fixed on the controls. "The Judicator can be activated remotely, but its deployment is irreversible. We must be absolutely certain. Nothing like a bit of pressure to focus the mind," Elan joked, though his hands trembled slightly. Keva took a deep breath, forcing herself to see beyond the immediate chaos to the larger picture. "We need to weigh our options," she said, her tone commanding. "Figure out if this thing's worth the risk." "Risk is the only certainty," Taru replied, his voice a strange mix of resignation and hope. They stood in silence for a moment, each lost in their thoughts, their fears. Keva could almost hear the clock ticking down, each second bringing them closer to decision or disaster. "Well," Bex said, breaking the tension, "if this is where we make life-altering decisions, I vote for a cup of coffee first." "Seconded," Elan agreed, his eyes flicking over the alien machinery with a half-crazed gleam. Taru shook his head, a ghost of a smile playing at his lips. "Humans and your rituals." "Hey," Keva interjected, "rituals help us pretend we have a handle on things." The chamber seemed to darken, as if foreboding shadows were creeping in from the edges. Keva couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, assessed by the labyrinth itself. "What's the situation outside?" Keva finally asked, needing a distraction from the oppressive atmosphere. "Not great," Bex replied, checking a handheld device. "The war's escalated, both sides are throwing everything they've got, and we're supposed to be the saviors," Elan scoffed, shaking his head. "We can barely save ourselves." "We're in a pickle, all right," Keva agreed, her voice flat. "Either we help stop this war or we add fuel to the fire." Taru looked at them, his expression serious. "The Judicator could end the conflict, or start a new one," Keva countered. "One where there's no one left to fight." Silence followed, the kind of silence that stretches out like a chasm threatening to swallow you whole. Keva could almost hear the gears of fate grinding in the background, mocking their every move. "So, what's our next step?" Elan asked, desperation shadowing his words. "We analyze," Keva decided, "weigh every option, every consequence, and if we make a choice, we do it together." "Together," Bex echoed, though the word hung heavy in the air. "Together," Taru agreed, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of conflict and hope. As they turned back to the controls, Keva couldn't help but feel the enormity of their task. The galaxy was counting on them, a ragtag team in a forgotten labyrinth. It was almost laughable if it weren't so damn tragic. "Well, let's get to it," she said, forcing a grin. "After all, the universe won't save itself." As they continued their work, the chamber's shadows seemed to recede, as if giving them space to breathe, to decide. And though the path was fraught with danger and doubt, they pressed on, driven by hope, fear, and the stubborn belief that somehow, against all odds, they might just pull it off. "But seriously," Bex added, "next time we do this, can we start with dessert?" "Sure," Keva replied, her voice lighter. "If there's a next time, dessert's on me." And with that they dived headlong into the unknown, gamblers' smiles on their faces, ready to face whatever trials fate had in store. Because if they were going to save the universe, or die trying, they'd do it with style, snark, and a healthy dose of grim humor. After all, if life gave you a labyrinth, you might as well enjoy the maze. The labyrinth had a charming way of turning from a slightly confusing puzzle into an outright menacing death trap. Keva had lost sight of her team somewhere between the twisting corridors and the judgmental machinery, and now it was just her, the artifact, and her thoughts, which, as it turned out, weren't particularly great company. "Well, Keva," she muttered to herself, You've really done it this time. Lost in a maze with a doomsday device and not even a map to get us out. Bloody brilliant. Her voice echoed dully off the walls, which seemed to absorb sound like a particularly surly sponge. The labyrinth felt alive, shifting and settling as if it took personal offense at her presence. Each step was a negotiation, each corner a new chance to get even more hopelessly lost. She squinted into the semi-darkness, the artifact in her jacket pocket a heavy reminder of the stakes. "Guess this is what they call a bad day at the office," she continued, the sound of her own voice oddly comforting in the suffocating silence. "All I need now is a motivational poster and a half-decent cup of coffee." Meanwhile, Taru found himself in a different section of the labyrinth, far removed from Keva's cynical monologue. His alien senses were attuned to the environment in ways hers could never be, but even he felt the oppressive weight of the place. The labyrinth was alive, yes, and seemingly in the throes of an existential crisis. He paused, taking a moment to center himself. "Keva," he called into the uncertain expanse, but the labyrinth ate his voice too. "The judicator awaits, we need you." Silence. "Well, isn't this cozy?" he grumbled, realizing he'd have to rely on more than his charm to navigate back to the team. The labyrinth, as if in response, shifted around him. "We've got a real fixer-upper here, don't we?" He moved forward, feeling the walls hum with a rhythm that seemed to sync with his heartbeat. It was a reminder of the stakes at play, of the lives hanging in the balance. The kind of responsibility he'd never exactly signed up for. But then, whoever did? Keva, meanwhile, had stumbled into what appeared to be a dead end. Great. She was pretty sure that was the metaphorical equivalent of a middle finger from the labyrinth. "Gorgeous," she muttered, studying the wall. "Absolutely bloody gorgeous." The only thing of interest was a series of alien script etched into the surface, glowing faintly like a cosmic nightlight. Her scanner, the one useful bit of tech she still had, beeped in acknowledgement. "Right," she said, scanning the symbols. The device chirped unhelpfully, its display showing text that was as comprehensible as a politician's promise. "Figures," she sighed. "Alien hieroglyphics, my favorite light reading." Bex's voice crackled suddenly over the comms, distorted but blessedly human. "Keva, you there? We're getting worried. I mean more than usual." Keva was relieved enough to almost feel sentimental. "Still kicking," she replied, hoping it would carry. "Just having a reflective moment with alien graffiti." "Classic you," Bex said, her voice a bomb against the solitude. "Elan and I found something that looks suspiciously like a panel of buttons. It's like a demented elevator console." "Don't touch anything," Keva warned. "Last thing we need is for you two to blow us all to hell. Or worse, get us stuck in here forever." Yeah, Bex shot back. "We're not that eager to end up as space dust." Keva smirked at that, though the feeling was fleeting. She needed to get back to them to find Taru and figure out how to wield the judicator without turning the galaxy into a smoking crater. Taru, navigating his own segment of the labyrinth, encountered similar runes. His hand brushed over them, feeling a connection, a thread leading him back. It seemed this place was built on riddles and half-truths, a cosmic joke with only a punchline. "Humans," he mused, shaking his head, "always tumbling into the deep end." He closed his eyes and focused, attempting to sense Keva's presence in the labyrinth. It was a gamble, but what wasn't on this damn moon? "Keva," he whispered again, hoping. Across the distance, Keva felt a sudden, inexplicable warmth. A tether, faint but real, she wasn't alone. "Come on, Labyrinth," she murmured, "play nice." Back with Bex and Elan, the duo was locked in a battle of wills with the alien panel. "This is where the magic happens," Elan said, poking gingerly at the controls. "Or the catastrophic failure. Could go either way." "Let's aim for magic," Bex replied, examining the symbols. "I'm too young to be a cautionary tale." The console blinked to life under their touch, casting an eerie light across their faces. "Well, look at that," Elan said, eyebrows dancing with surprise. "Maybe we should have gone into electronics." "Too late for career changes," Bex snorted. "Though if we survive, I'm adding alien technician to my resume." Elan's scanner beeped. the display scrolling rapidly through unknown data. "Think we managed to wake something up," he muttered. "Let's hope it's not the Labyrinth's version of an alarm clock." Keva, following her hunch, found herself moving with a purpose she hadn't felt before. "Told you," she said to no one in particular, "I prefer my existential dread with a side of direction." Her comms crackled again, this time with Taru's voice. "Keva, I've found a way through. Follow the symbols there, guiding us." A skeptical eyebrow arched on Keva's face. "Guiding us? Since when did we trust the Daker to lead the way?" "Since we hit rock bottom," Taru replied. "And I mean that in the spiritual sense." "Touché," Keva muttered, though a flicker of hope warmed her. She retraced her steps, following the glowing script. Maybe, just maybe, she'd find her way back. Taru, too, moved with renewed determination. The labyrinth, for all its hostility, seemed to relent, pathways opening like grudging smiles. "You're not as clever as you think," he told the walls, feeling their reluctant cooperation. Meanwhile, Bex and Elan continued to fiddle with the console. "You know," Bex said, "I always thought if I died in space, it'd be because I choked on my own sense of adventure." Elan snorted. "And here we are, victims of our own curiosity." The console beeped, and a holographic map projected into the air before them. "Bingo," Elan breathed, studying the layout. "We might actually make it out of here. Or we could just be seeing our impending doom in HD," Bex countered. As they studied the map, Keva and Taru finally found each other at a crossroads, figuratively and literally. "Took your time," Keva said, though relief tugged at the corners of her mouth. "Had to take a scenic route," Taru replied, nodding towards the symbols. "Our friends here have a peculiar way of being helpful." The labyrinth seemed to hum in agreement, as if acknowledging their perseverance. "We need to get back to Bex and Elan," Keva said, "and then figure out how to deal with the Judicator without blowing ourselves to Kingdom Come." "A challenge worthy of our combined intellects," Taru replied, a hint of humor in his voice. They navigated through the maze with the map as their guide, paths unspooling before them like a reluctant red carpet. As they walked, Keva couldn't help but think how absurd it was. Two species, one labyrinth, and a weapon that could either save them or end them. "So," she said, breaking the silence, "how are we feeling about world saving today? Think it'll make us famous?" Taru's grin was a flash in the dimness. "If we survive, I'll make sure they name a holiday after us." They reached Bex and Elan, who were examining their holographic map with an intensity usually reserved for bomb defusal. "And here I thought you'd forgotten about us," Bex said, looking up. "Never," Keva replied. "I mean, who else would bring the snacks? We're fresh out, remember?" Elan pointed out, though his tone was lighter now. "Right," Keva said. "Add that to the post-success shopping list." The team, reunited and armed with a partial understanding of their surroundings, turned their collective focus on the looming figure of the Judicator. "Time to end this," Keva declared, her voice firm. "Or begin something else," Taru added, his tone uncharacteristically hopeful. As they stood before the alien machinery, its dormant power thrumming beneath their feet, Keva felt the weight of the universe on her shoulders. It was terrifying and invigorating all at once. "Ready?" she asked, glancing around. "Ready as I'll ever be," Bex replied. "Let's see if we're as clever as we think," Elan added. Taru nodded. "For our worlds." They turned to the controls, each knowing that whatever happened next would define them, define history. As they placed their hands on the alien symbols, the labyrinth seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the final act. Keva glanced at her team, a wry smile tugging at her lips. "Here's to the biggest gamble of our lives," she said. "And to hoping we don't roll snake eyes," Bex quipped. With one last shared look, they activated the console, the Judicator roaring to life under their command. The labyrinth shuddered with power, a beast awakening to its purpose. And as they faced the unknown, one thing was certain. Whatever happened, they'd face it together, with snark, grit, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of hope. "Doctor." Keva Lyra stood in front of the Judicator, a machine that could either save their hides or turn them into cosmic confetti. She surveyed her ragtag crew, the ones who would either become legends or footnotes in the annals of failure. "So, Anyone feel like they know what they're doing? Bex Riggs, ever the optimist, grinned like someone who'd just been dared to eat space chili. Confidence is for amateurs. We're professionals at winging it. Elan Taurus, the ever-practical scientist, was busy trying not to trip over his own feet while adjusting his scanner. I'd like to keep my legs intact, thank you very much. Taru, the alien with an unsettling knack for navigating this death trap, nodded at Keva. Trust between us, Doctor. That's the key. Also not dying. Keva smirked, though inside she was juggling a cocktail of anxiety and determination. Trust is a big ask, especially when we're entrusting our lives to a weapon that might judge us unworthy and blow us to pieces. Nothing ventured, nothing exploded, Bex chimed in, tapping at the console with reckless enthusiasm. Let's see if we can coax this thing into playing nice. Keva thought about the labyrinth with its pulsing walls and shifting corridors. It was a place of secrets and, perversely enough, possibilities. The labyrinth's been guiding us, maybe it's got a plan, or it's just messing with us for kicks. Sounds like every relationship I've ever had, Elan muttered, focusing on his scanner. But maybe we can harness its power differently, if we trust it and each other. Trust. How very human of us, Taru mused, his alien features unreadable. But if this is a joke, the punchline better not be our deaths. Here's hoping, Keva replied, feeling the weight of what they were about to attempt. All right, team, let's make history, or at least a good cautionary tale. The labyrinth hummed around them, a living entity ready to repel or embrace their efforts. It was a silent witness to their attempts to control the Judicator. It was either going to be their executioner or their savior. No pressure, right? Elan, having finally stopped fiddling with his scanner, looked like a man resigned to a fate he wasn't sure of but was too tired to fight. What's the worst that could happen? Don't tempt fate, Bex warned, though she wore a crooked smile that spoke of nerves and camaraderie. Keva turned to Taru, the one who seemed to understand this alien place better than any of them. You said the labyrinth is built on riddles and half-truths. Got any cheat codes for us? Only the willingness to let go of fear, Taru answered, cryptically as always. Fear is the labyrinth's true guardian. Great, Keva deadpanned. A maze powered by existential dread. We're doomed. They approached the Judicator, its form a massive presence in the dimly lit chamber. Keva touched the alien symbols on its surface, feeling the thrumming energy beneath her fingertips. It was like holding a live wire, one connected to the fate of their galaxy. So, do we hold hands now or what? Bex joked, although a hint of sincerity lingered. If we're going out, might as well be holding hands, Keva replied, half serious. All right, people, on 3. 1, 2, the Judicator roared to life with a sound that was part symphony, part scream. The labyrinth reacted instantly, its walls vibrating in violent synergy with the machine. It felt like they'd plugged a toaster into a star. 3, Keva finished belatedly, breathless from the sheer force of it. Well, that's reassuring. Elan's scanner went haywire, but he held his ground. Whatever happens, happens. We're committed now. More committed than my last relationship, Bex quipped. And with about the same odds of survival. They stood united, a motley band of unlikely heroes, the embodiment of the galaxy's last desperate gamble. The Judicator thrummed with power, light cascading from it in waves. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a testament, or at least an ironic footnote, to their struggles. Here's to the universe, Keva whispered, feeling the labyrinth respond. Let's not screw this up. The Judicator pulsed in response, as if hearing them, as if judging them. For a moment, the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see if these small, stubborn creatures could wield a weapon meant to decide the fate of worlds. Taru placed a hand on the console, eyes closed in concentration. Feel it. The labyrinth is alive and it listens. We must guide it, not command it. Again with the trust thing, Keva muttered. You're really pushing your luck here. The walls around them shifted, the labyrinth adapting to their intentions. Pathways opened, light streaming through in tentative beams. It was as if the ancient structure was finally cooperating, perhaps out of curiosity or boredom. Bex laughed, a sound that was half relief, half insanity. I can't believe this might actually work. Don't jinx it, Elan warned, though his grin was infectious. Let's just hope it continues to play along. The Judicator, for the first time, felt less like a doomsday machine and more like an ally. They could feel its power, a current flowing through them, uniting human and alien in their shared determination to not die horribly. Keva, heart pounding, looked to her team and saw reflected in their eyes the same mix of fear, hope, and defiance. Let's make this count. Together they focused, channeling their intent into the Judicator, willing it to act not as a weapon of destruction but as a beacon of preservation. It was a gamble of epic proportions, one that might yet pay off or backfire spectacularly. Well, Beck said, once more the voice of hopeful cynicism, if we go out, at least we'll be remembered as the idiots who tried. Idiots or heroes, Taru replied, a glint of humor in his alien eyes. Either way, we'll be unforgettable. The Judicator surged with energy, the labyrinth echoing its power in a symphony that was both terrifying and awe-inspiring. They had reached the precipice of their endeavor, and whatever happened next would either save them or condemn them. Their hands remained on the alien console, each of them connected to the machine and to each other in this final, desperate moment. The labyrinth, alive with energy, seemed to watch them, waiting for the culmination of their gamble. "Here we go," Keva whispered, the words barely audible over the cacophony of power. The Judicator roared, a beast awakening to its purpose, but this time it was not alone. The labyrinth responded, its walls shimmering with potential, as if acknowledging their resolve. And they stood, hands on the console, a defiant testament to the resilience of life, ready to face whatever outcome awaited them. Whether they were about to become legends or martyrs, they'd do it together, with snark, humor, and maybe, just maybe, a little flicker of hope. Doctor. Keva Lyra stood there, heart thumping like it was trying to tap dance out of her chest, staring down the Judicator. It was a contraption that looked like a blender had an unholy marriage with a supernova. All she could think was, "Please don't kill us," which thankfully she didn't say out loud. No need to jinx it more than Bex already had. "Well, team," she began, trying to sound more confident than she felt, "we're about to do something either incredibly heroic or incredibly stupid." Ready, Bex Riggs, impossibly cheerful even when facing potential obliteration, snorted. "Define ready. If you mean ready to become a smear in some alien history book, then sure, I'm ready." "Exactly the attitude I was hoping for," Keva said dryly. She glanced at Elan, who was fiddling with his scanner like it might suddenly solve all their problems. "Elan, anything on that thing that says off switch?" "Not unless you count turning it off and on again," Elan replied, his voice tinged with a resigned sort of humor. "But I'm pretty sure the universe's warranty doesn't cover this." Keva turned to Taru, the alien guide who'd somehow become their teammate in this cosmic joke of a mission. "So Taru, any sage advice from your people?" Taru's eyes flickered with that unreadable alien emotion, somewhere between pity and amusement. "Remember, Doctor, the labyrinth holds no certainties, only possibilities, and also try not to die." "Solid advice," Keva said, rolling her eyes. "Guess we'll just pretend we know what we're doing." Bex clapped her on the back, nearly sending her sprawling into the console. "Hey, pretending is half the battle, we've got this." The Judicator was still humming ominously, like a beast waiting to be unleashed. Its power was palpable, a raw energy that made the hairs on Keva's neck stand up. She felt like she was standing on the edge of a precipice, ready to either soar or plummet. "All right," she said, taking a deep breath. "Let's activate this thing and hope it comes with an instruction manual." As they placed their hands on the alien symbols once more, Keva couldn't help but think of all the things she'd never done. Climbing Everest, seeing the ocean, dating someone who wasn't a complete moron. But hey, she was about to save the galaxy or destroy it. No pressure, right? The Judicator's energy surged through them, a tingling sensation that was both exhilarating and terrifying. The labyrinth seemed to react, its walls shimmering with an eerie light as if it was finally paying attention. "Whoa," Bex breathed, eyes wide. "It's like the universe just turned up the volume." "Let's just hope it's not our funeral march," Elan muttered, adjusting his scanner. "I really didn't dress for the occasion." Taru, ever cryptic, closed his eyes, attuning himself to the labyrinth. "The maze is alive. It senses our intent. We must guide it, not force it." "Guide it, huh?" Keva said, feeling the weight of the universe again. "Hope it doesn't mind my terrible sense of direction." They focused their thoughts, willing the Judicator to act as a tool of salvation rather than destruction. Keva imagined peace, a galaxy free of war, and the labyrinth responded, its walls pulsing in time with her heartbeat. "It's working," Taru announced, his voice a blend of surprise and satisfaction. "The labyrinth is aligning with our intent." "Great," Bex said, sarcasm lacing her tone. "Now all we need is a miracle." Keva could feel the Judicator's power building, a crescendo of energy that was both beautiful and terrifying. She knew they were on the brink of something monumental, something that could either save them or doom them. "All right, team," she said, her voice steady despite the swirling chaos around them. "Let's finish this." For better or worse. The Judicator pulsed, its energy flowing through them, a river of potential that was both exhilarating and terrifying. Keva felt a strange sense of peace, as if she was finally where she was meant to be. "Here goes nothing," she whispered, the words barely audible over the roar of the machine. The world around them seemed to shift, the labyrinth responding to their collective will. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated possibility, a glimpse into what could be. And then, the Judicator released its power, a surge of energy that radiated out into the cosmos. Keva felt the universe tremble, the very fabric of reality bending under the force of the Judicator's might. It was a moment of ultimate clarity, the realization that they were not alone, that they were part of something greater. For a moment there was silence, a stillness that was both comforting and terrifying. And then the labyrinth sighed, a soft exhalation that seemed to carry with it a sense of acceptance. "Did we do it?" Bex asked, her voice hushed with awe. Keva opened her eyes, taking in the scene before her. The Judicator was quiet now, its energy spent, but the labyrinth was alive with light, its walls shimmering with a gentle glow. "I think we did," Keva replied, her voice thick with emotion. "I think we actually did it." Elan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Wow, I can't believe it. We actually saved the galaxy, or at least didn't blow it up." Taru nodded, a rare smile gracing his alien features. "The labyrinth is at peace." "We have succeeded." "Yeah, but at what cost?" Keva asked, feeling the weight of their actions settling on her shoulders. "We've given up our technological edge, our power. We've won, but we've lost everything." Beck slung an arm around her shoulders, her grin as irrepressible as ever. "Hey, we're still here, right? That's gotta count for something." "True," Keva admitted, a small smile tugging at her lips. "At least we'll have one hell of a story to tell." They stood there, basking in the light of the labyrinth, a testament to their perseverance and unity. They had faced the unknown and come out stronger for it, a motley crew of heroes who had dared to defy the odds. "Here's to the universe," Keva said, raising an imaginary glass. "And to not screwing up the next chapter." "Cheers," Beck said, clinking an invisible glass against hers. Elan chuckled, shaking his head. "You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm actually glad I came on this crazy mission." "Me too," Keva admitted, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "Me too." As they made their way back through the labyrinth, Keva couldn't help but feel a sense of hope for the future. They had overcome the impossible, and though the road ahead was uncertain, they would face it together. "Hey, Keva," Beck said, nudging her in the ribs. "Think we'll get a medal for this?" Keva laughed, a sound that echoed through the labyrinth. "Probably not, but we'll have some great stories to tell." The Judicator's power had been unleashed, a force for change that would reshape the galaxy. And though they had lost much, they had gained something more valuable, a sense of unity, of purpose, and the knowledge that they were capable of achieving the impossible. As they stepped into the light, leaving the labyrinth behind, Keva felt a sense of peace settle over her. They had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, not as conquerors but as saviors. And that, she realized, was worth more than any technology or power. "Come on, team," she said, leading the way. "Let's go home." And with that, they stepped into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They were united, a force for change in a galaxy that would never be the same. Together, they had made history, and whatever the future held, they would face it with courage, determination, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit of hope. In the wake of unleashing the Judicator, the Labyrinth settled into a serene sort of calm, as if it had finally exhaled a breath it didn't know it was holding. Doctor Keva Lyra stood among the alien ruins, half expecting the walls to start plotting their demise again. Instead, they glowed with an uncharacteristic tranquility. "Well," Keva said, brushing off a layer of cosmic dust from her sleeves, "we didn't die." Always a good start. Bex Riggs, ever the optimist for someone who frequently flirted with death, stretched with a groan. "Yeah, but I've got this knot in my back that's sure it was in the will." "You make a convincing case for chiropractic care," Elan Taurus replied, tapping his scanner, which had surprisingly survived the ordeal. "And hey, the universe is still here. That's got to be worth a mention in the obituary." "Let's hope that's not anytime soon," Keva muttered, her eyes scanning the flickering walls. The Judicator's power had waned, leaving them in a world of possibility rather than ruin. "Taru, what's your read on the situation?" The alien guide, Taru, stood apart, eyes like polished obsidian glistening with something akin to satisfaction. "The Labyrinth is appeased. It has accepted the peace we offered, or maybe it just got bored of trying to kill us," Keva snorted. "Boredom, the ultimate peacemaker." Taru's gaze met hers, an unreadable emotion flickering there. "Your people have shown strength in adversity. Perhaps our paths are not so different." "Let's not get too sentimental," Keva said, though a warmth she'd never admit to spread in her chest. "We're still figuring out how not to blow ourselves up every other Tuesday." Bex sauntered over, her grin as wide as the debris field they'd left in their wake. "Guess we're pioneers of peace now. Who'd have thought?" She nudged Keva, her eyes twinkling with mischief. "Maybe we'll get a statue, something tasteful with fewer tentacles." "That's a relief," Elan interjected, glancing at the maze shifting shadows. "I've had my fill of alien appendages for a lifetime, thanks." As they began their slow trek back to what passed for an exit, the group moved with a newfound sense of purpose. They had made history, albeit in a way that made cosmic authorities everywhere breathe a sigh of relief that it hadn't been their mess to clean up. Keva walked alongside Taru, the silence between them comfortable, like a worn pair of boots. "So Taru, what's next for you?" The alien shrugged, a gesture that seemed remarkably human. "I will return to my people, tell them of your courage. Perhaps we will find new ways to cooperate, to understand." Keva glanced over at him, a smile tugging at her lips. "And here I thought you were just guiding us to our doom." Taru's laughter echoed through the corridors, bouncing off the walls with an eerie charm. "The thought did cross my mind, but I have found your company refreshing." Bex's voice drifted back to them, cutting through the moment with her usual irreverence. "If by refreshing you mean we're a lovable disaster, then you're not wrong." Keva chuckled, shaking her head. "A disaster with good intentions. The best kind." As they continued, the path seemed less ominous, the labyrinth's once threatening shadows now merely part of the backdrop. It felt like a new chapter, one where the monster under the bed decided it would rather read a book with you than eat you alive. "Think we'll make it back to the shuttle in one piece?" Elan asked, an edge of skepticism to his voice. "I mean, we've already defied every law of probability." Keva cast him a wry grin. "Stick with us, Elan. We're experts at improbable survival." Taru paused, a hand resting on the wall, sensing something only he could perceive. "The labyrinth's energy is stable. It acknowledges your presence, respects it even." Beck snorted. "See, Keva, even murderous alien mazes think you're cool." Keva rolled her eyes. "I'll add that to my resume, right under responsible for galactic near-miss." Elan shook his head in disbelief. You know, I thought being a scientist was all about observing and recording. Turns out, it's mostly about dodging annihilation and making sarcastic remarks. Welcome to the team, Keva said with a smirk. That's basically our mission statement. The labyrinth's corridors began to widen, opening up into larger caverns bathed in soft, ambient light. It was as if the place was finally inviting them in rather than trying to seal them out. Keva felt the tension in her shoulders ease, the weight of their task lifting. So, what now? Bex asked, her voice curious, unburdened by fear for the first time in days. Now, Keva replied, we go home. We tell everyone that peace is an option, that we're not just about to roll over and accept a future of endless war. Taru inclined his head, his eyes dark and deep. And perhaps in time our peoples will fight alongside one another instead of against. That's the idea, Keva agreed, feeling a sense of camaraderie with the alien that transcended language and culture. Just. Maybe without the Judicator next time. Bex gave a mock salute. Onward to slightly less chaotic adventures. As they approached the exit, the labyrinth seemed to sigh once more, a gentle breeze that rustled Keva's hair and carried with it a promise. Not of certainty, but of possibility. It was the kind of promise that made you feel like maybe, just maybe, things would be okay. Think the galaxy will remember us? Elan asked, a hint of wistfulness in his voice. Keva considered it, the weight of their actions settling around her like a comfortable cloak. Maybe, or maybe we'll just become another legend, a story to tell wide-eyed recruits about how we almost broke the universe. I'm good with that, Bex said, a lopsided grin on her face. Gives me something to brag about at parties. Assuming there's still a galaxy left to party in, Elan pointed out, though his tone was more amused than bitter. Keva nodded, feeling a sense of closure as they stepped into the daylight filtering in from above. There will be, and who knows? Maybe we'll even find a way to screw things up less spectacularly next time. Taru inclined his head to Keva, an air of solemnity settling over him. You have my gratitude, and my respect. Keva met his gaze, feeling the weight of what they had accomplished. And you have mine, Taru. For what it's worth, I think we might just be able to figure this out, one improbable step at a time. With their feet on the path home and their hearts set on the future, the group left the labyrinth behind. It was a place of secrets and challenges, but now also of hope and new beginnings. They'd faced the unknown and come out the other side, irrevocably changed but undeniably stronger. As they made their way back to the shuttle, Keva couldn't help but feel a twinge of something she hadn't in a long time, hope. It was fragile like a fledgling bird, but it was there, fluttering in her chest and urging her forward. Hey, Keva, Bex said, her voice cutting through her thoughts. Think we'll ever find another adventure like this one? Keva laughed, the sound full of warmth and a touch of disbelief. I sure as hell hope not, but if we do, I suppose I can count on you to make it bearable. Damn right, Bex replied, her grin wide and infectious. As they reached the shuttle, the familiar battered hulk that had brought them here, Keva took a moment to look back at the labyrinth. It stood silent, a testament to their journey and their triumphs. Ready to go home? Elan asked, his fingers already dancing over the controls. Yeah, Keva said, her voice steady, assured. Let's go home. As the shuttle lifted off, carrying them away from the labyrinth and into the vast expanse of space, Keva couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation for what lay ahead. The galaxy was wide and full of possibilities, and she knew that they would face whatever came next with the same determination and irreverent humor that had brought them this far. To new beginnings, she murmured to herself, watching as the stars blurred into lines of light around them. To not screwing up the next chapter, Elan added from his seat, a sardonic smile on his lips, and with that they were off, heading into the unknown with their heads held high and their hearts full of hope. They had made history, and whatever the future held, they were ready to face it together.